Welcome, dear viewers, to Pages from History, where we bring the past to life through compelling stories and historical investigation. Today, we embark on an extraordinary journey into one of history's greatest mysteries. We will explore the legend of King Arthur, separating historical truth from medieval fantasy and romantic embellishment. This is a story that has captivated minds for 15 centuries and continues to inspire countless retellings. Stay with us until the end as we uncover archaeological evidence, examine ancient chronicles, and walk the very landscapes where history and legend intertwine. Let us begin this fascinating exploration of Britain's most celebrated hero and the truth that lies beneath the myth. First, the Dark Age origins and historical context. The Roman legions abandoned Britain in the year 410 AD, leaving behind a civilization suddenly vulnerable and exposed. For centuries of Roman rule had created a society dependent on imperial protection and organized military defense. The Britons found themselves facing devastating raids from Pictish tribes in the north and Irish raiders from the west. Saxon warriors from Germanic lands across the sea saw opportunity in Britain's weakness and began launching ambitious invasions. This period became known as the Dark Ages, not merely for its violence, but for the scarce written records that survived. The libraries burned, the chroniclers fell silent, and much of Britain's history vanished into shadow and uncertainty. Yet this era of chaos and transformation became the fertile ground where the Arthurian legend would take root. Desperate people needed heroes, and the collective memory of this time preserved stories of extraordinary resistance and courage. The Romano-British population clung to remnants of civilization, while Saxon settlements expanded across the eastern territories. Cities crumbled into ruins, roads fell into disrepair, and the sophisticated Roman way of life collapsed into tribal warfare. Christian monasteries became islands of learning and literacy in a sea of cultural decline and mounting darkness. Monks preserved fragments of knowledge, copying ancient texts by candlelight in cold stone chambers overlooking troubled lands. In this turbulent world, military leaders emerged to organize resistance against the relentless Saxon advance from the east. These commanders combined Roman military tactics with Celtic warrior traditions, creating effective defensive forces from desperate circumstances. The common people told stories around fires of brave warriors who held back the tide of invasion. These oral traditions passed from generation to generation, growing more elaborate with each retelling until history blurred seamlessly into legend. Archaeological evidence reveals hill forts being hastily refortified during this period, suggesting coordinated military campaigns against the invaders. The traces of large-scale battles scar the British landscape, silent witnesses to conflicts that shaped the nation's destiny. Second, the warrior leader who fought the Saxons. The earliest mention of Arthur appears in the Historia Brittonum, written by the Welsh monk Nennius around 830 AD. This text describes not a king, but a dux bellorum, a military commander who led British forces in battle. Nennius credits Arthur with 12 great victories against the Saxons, culminating in the Battle of Mount Badon around 500 AD. This crucial battle supposedly halted Saxon expansion for nearly 50 years, giving the Britons a generation of relative peace. The historical evidence suggests a real military leader existed who achieved remarkable success against overwhelming odds and superior numbers. This commander likely came from Romano-British nobility, educated in Latin military strategy and classical warfare tactics. He would have worn the armor of late Roman cavalry officers, carried weapons forged in British smithies, and commanded mounted warriors. His forces probably consisted of armored horsemen who could strike swiftly and withdraw before Saxon infantry could engage effectively. The Battle of Mount Badon stands as a genuine historical event mentioned in multiple early sources independently. The Welsh annals place it specifically in the year 516, describing it as Arthur's greatest triumph over the invaders. Contemporary accounts describe a devastating defeat for the Saxons, with thousands of warriors falling in a single catastrophic engagement. The battle may have taken place at a fortified hill position where British cavalry could exploit their tactical advantages. After this victory, Saxon chronicles fall mysteriously silent for decades, suggesting their expansion truly did halt dramatically. British settlements flourished briefly, churches were rebuilt, and trade routes reopened across the temporarily secured territories of post-Roman Britain. Yet the real Arthur, if he existed, likely died in another battle called Camelot, according to ancient Welsh tradition. The Annals of Wales record this final conflict in 537 AD, noting cryptically that Arthur and Mordred both perished. This suggests internal conflict or civil war among the Britons themselves, weakening their resistance to external threats. The unity Arthur had forged apparently shattered after his death, allowing the Saxons to resume their conquest with renewed vigor. Third, Camelot, Excalibur, and the Round Table Mystery. The famous Camelot appears nowhere in the earliest Arthurian sources, being a later medieval addition to the growing legend. Early Welsh poems mention Arthur's court at various locations, but never name a specific castle called Camelot consistently. Geoffrey of Monmouth's influential Historia Regum Britanniae, written in 1136, established many elements we recognize today, but still avoided naming Camelot. The name first appears definitively in Chrétien de Troyes French romances written in the late 12th century. Numerous British locations claim to be the real Camelot, from Cadbury Castle in Somerset to Caerleon in Wales. Archaeological excavations at Cadbury revealed extensive fortifications dating to the late 5th century, precisely Arthur's supposed era of activity. The site showed evidence of a large feasting hall capable of accommodating hundreds of warriors in Germanic and Celtic tradition. Pottery fragments, weapon remains, and evidence of extensive metalworking suggest a significant military headquarters operated there for decades. The legendary sword Excalibur derives from earlier Welsh traditions about a magical blade called Caeldfulch in ancient Celtic tales. Medieval writers transformed this mythical weapon into the famous sword in the stone and the gift from the lady. Such magical swords appear throughout Indo-European mythology, from the Norse Gram to the Irish Fragarack and beyond. The historical Arthur would have carried a pattern-welded steel blade, rare and valuable in his time, perhaps imported or inherited. The round table concept emerges in the writings of the Norman poet Was around 1155, symbolizing equality among knights. No archaeological evidence supports the existence of such a table, though communal feasting in circular arrangements was common. The round table served a literary purpose, creating a fellowship of equals rather than a hierarchical court structure. This democratic ideal appealed to medieval audiences even though it contradicted the rigid social hierarchies of actual feudal society. Glastonbury Abbey claimed to have discovered Arthur's grave in 1191, conveniently during a period of financial difficulty for the monastery. The supposed tomb attracted pilgrims and donations, but modern analysis suggests it was an elaborate medieval fundraising scheme. Fourth, medieval writers and the growth of legend. Geoffrey of Monmouth's Historia Regum Britanniae transformed Arthur from a minor war leader into a conquering king of epic proportions. His wildly imaginative account had Arthur defeating Romans, establishing an empire, and ruling from a magnificent court in splendor. Geoffrey claimed to have translated from an ancient British book, but modern scholars believe he largely invented his narrative. His Arthur conquered Ireland, Iceland, Norway, and even invaded Gaul, establishing British dominion across half of Europe miraculously. This fictional history proved enormously popular throughout medieval Europe, being translated into numerous languages within decades of its composition. Kings and nobles embraced the Arthurian legend as proof of Britain's ancient glory and civilized heritage from bygone ages. French poets like Chrétien de Troyes added the courtly love elements, introducing Lancelot and the tragic romance that doomed Camelot. These sophisticated French romances transformed Arthur from a warrior hero into a somewhat passive king presiding over knightly adventures. The knights themselves became the true heroes of these tales, with Arthur serving mainly as the authority figure who dispatched them. Lancelot, Gawain, Percival, and others dominated the stories while Arthur receded into a symbolic role as sovereign and judge. Thomas Malory's Le Morte d'Arthur, completed in 1469, synthesized centuries of Arthurian literature into one comprehensive narrative masterpiece. Written while Malory was imprisoned, this work established the definitive version that still influences modern retellings and interpretations. Each generation of writers added new elements reflecting their own cultural values, concerns, and artistic sensibilities to the growing legend. Medieval Christian writers emphasized the Holy Grail quest and religious themes, transforming pagan Celtic tales into Christian allegories. The legend grew to encompass magic, prophecy, tragic love, betrayal, and redemption in an elaborate narrative tapestry spanning decades. What began as simple war stories evolved into a complex mythological cycle rivaling classical epics in scope and ambition. By the late Middle Ages, Arthur had become more important as a literary and cultural symbol than as history. The legend transcended its origins, becoming a mirror in which each age saw its own ideals of heroism and nobility. Fifth, modern archaeology and the search for truth. 20th century archaeology began systematically investigating sites associated with the Arthurian period, seeking material evidence of the historical reality. Excavations across Britain revealed the Dark Ages were more complex and dynamic than previously thought by earlier scholars. The work at Cadbury Castle, South Cadbury, conducted in the 1960s revealed impressive fortifications from exactly the right period for Arthur. The site showed evidence of a powerful leader organizing major construction projects and commanding significant resources and manpower. Similar excavations at Tintagel in Cornwall, traditionally associated with Arthur's birth, uncovered evidence of Mediterranean trade during the 5th century. This suggested continued international connections and a degree of wealth contradicting the dark characterization of the entire era. Modern historians now recognize that while a King Arthur of legend never existed, a historical prototype probably did exist. This figure was likely a Romano-British military commander who achieved significant victories against Saxon invaders in the early 6th century. The lack of contemporary written evidence reflects the general collapse of literacy rather than Arthur's non-existence as a figure. Most historical records from this period vanished, making it impossible to definitively prove or disprove specific individuals and their accomplishments. DNA analysis and place name studies provide indirect evidence of population movements and cultural interactions during Arthur's supposed lifetime. These sciences reveal complex patterns of settlement, resistance, and eventual Saxon dominance across the former Roman territories of Britain. Some scholars suggest Arthur may have been a composite figure, combining the deeds of several historical leaders into one legendary hero. This process of mythological consolidation commonly occurs in oral traditions, merging multiple heroes into singular archetypal champions remembered through generations. The enduring appeal of the Arthurian legend lies not in historical accuracy, but in its powerful exploration of universal human themes. Honor, loyalty, betrayal, love, sacrifice, and the tragic fall of a golden age resonate across cultures and centuries. Whether Arthur truly existed matters less than what his legend represents about human aspirations and the stories we tell ourselves. The search for historical truth enhances our appreciation of how legends form, evolve, and inspire countless generations across the ages. And so our journey through the mists of history and legend comes to its conclusion, Dear viewers of Pages from History, we have explored the evidence, examined the sources, and walked the borderland between fact and fiction where Arthur dwells eternally. The truth about King Arthur remains beautifully elusive, neither fully proven nor entirely disproven by the historical and archaeological record. Perhaps this mystery is fitting for a figure who represents not just one man, but the collective aspirations of a people facing overwhelming challenges. What we can say with certainty is that in the darkest period of British history, someone led a heroic resistance that became the foundation of an enduring legend. Whether his name was truly Arthur matters less than the inspiration his story continues to provide across 15 centuries of human history. If you enjoyed this exploration of history's greatest mysteries, please like this video, leave your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe to Pages from History for more fascinating journeys into the past. Share this video with fellow history enthusiasts and help us grow this community of knowledge seekers.